am Dominus Cinephile.
Welcome to my movie and TV series reviews, where I will provide honest opinions of the latest releases. If the movie or TV series is a hit or a miss, be sure to know I will inform you. But if the movie or series is trash, be also sure to know that I will trash the hell out of the movie. I am Dominus Cinephile.
And the movie on the review table today is the Nollywood film Devil is a Liar. Devil is a Liar is a 2025 Nollywood drama written by Tunde Babalola and directed by Moses Inwang. The film features a powerhouse ensemble cast, including Nse Ikpe-Etim, Nlewedim, Isime, Nse Aigbe, Tinamba, James Gardiner, Yemi Blaq, and Carolyna Hutchings. It premieres globally on Netflix, August 15, 2025. The story follows Adaora Phillips, a successful independent real estate mogul in her 30s who has conquered the corporate world but remains trapped under the suffocating weight of societal and family expectations about love and marriage. Despite her resilience, the constant whisperings of settling down gnaw at her peace. When fate introduces her to Jaye, a charismatic, ambitious fashion designer on the brink of stardom, Adaora believes she has finally found a missing piece. Their romance blossoms with intensity, quickly evolving into a whirlwind engagement and marriage. On the surface, their love story seems like a modern-day fairy tale, one that silences her critics and fulfills the dream she never thought possible. But perfection is an illusion. Soon, cracks begin to show. The charming husband who once seemed like a salvation reveals himself as the architect of her undoing. Adaora's dream life spirals into a nightmare of betrayal, emotional manipulation, and deceit, with a knight in shining armor proving to be the very devil she must confront. Stripped of trust and standing on the rules of everything she believed in, Adaora fights to reclaim her dignity, rebuild her shattered life, and take back control. But in this dangerous game of survival and revenge, the prize of justice may be far deadlier than she ever imagined. Now let's dive into this review and see whether Devil is a Liar truly lives up to the promise of his gripping synopsis. I stumbled upon the film last week, and when I was eager to watch it, not just because I'm a loyal fan of Nse Ikpe-Etim, the lead actress, but also out of sheer curiosity, I initially delayed my viewing as I was trying to catch up on the latest episodes of Chief of War. That said, I finally carved out the time, and here's my verdict. Like many Nollywood dramas, the film opens with the promise of a psychological exploration, a raw, piercing look into how love, when tangled with societal pressures, can spiral into abuse, manipulation, and eventual self-destruction. At its core, Adaora's journey could have been a chilling examination of how external expectations and toxic love can dismantle even the strongest of women. But unfortunately, Devil is a Liar squanders this potential. Instead of embracing the dark layered portrait of Adaora's trauma, the narrative collapses into a shallow revenge tale, shifting tones like a wannabe action thriller. What should have been an emotionally searing story of psychological disintegration becomes diluted, reduced to a simplistic justification for vengeance. The film fails to interrogate the real horror, the suffocating erosion of self-worth, the mental tug-of-war between victimhood and survival, and the dangerous cycle of silence and endurance that traps so many women. This bypassing of Adaora's emotional depth leaves the film hollow. The psychological terrain of abuse, the cracks in confidence, the subtle gaslighting, the slow suffocation of agency is barely touched. Instead, we are forced to watch a fast-paced, fragmented storyline that feels like a rushed 2-hour montage rather than a carefully built drama. Scenes speed by with the breathlessness of a highlight reel, giving the impression that the filmmakers were more concerned with ticking off dramatic beats than crafting a cohesive, immersive narrative. What could have been a devastatingly raw exploration of love, betrayal, and survival instead unravels into a predictable cycle of vengeance, leaving the audience frustrated by what might have been. Devil is a Liar begins with the voice of a psychological drama, but ends up choking on its own misplaced ambitions. The movie's title, Devil is a Liar, borrows from a popular Nigerian saying, a phrase loaded with cultural weight and spiritual defiance. But ironically, the film itself becomes the biggest liar of all. From start to finish, it deceives the audience with the promise of depth it never delivers. What should have been a bold, searing drama instead collapses into a shallow, self-contradictory mess. The film doesn't just lie to its viewers, it lies to itself. Watching it feels like sitting through the Nollywood equivalent of a weak Tyler Perry melodrama. Glossy on the surface, hollow at the core, and painfully predictable. There's no detailed character development, no layered storytelling, nothing that allows the audience to connect emotionally with Adaora's journey. The characters float across the screen like sketches, never fully realized, never compelling enough to draw us into their pain or struggles. The film's plot promised a story of brokenness, resilience, and survival. But what it delivers instead is a watered-down morality tale about revenge. A simplistic, one-note retribution arc that feels disconnected from the weight of its own title. The supposed psychological drama is stripped of nuance and reduced to empty spectacle, leaving the story flat, frustrating, and ultimately meaningless. This movie is a mind-numbing disaster, riddled with flaws at every turn. From recycled tropes we've already seen done far better in other films, to weak one-liner dialogues that have become Nollywood's unfortunate trademark, to a script utterly devoid of life, Devil is a Liar reeks of mediocrity. Even the cinematography is laughably bad, as washed out and lifeless as a walls bright fabric ruined by hypo bleach. The lighting only made matters worse. Entire scenes were so poorly handled that characters appeared either unnaturally dark or bleached out to shades lighter than their real complexion, further killing any chance at visual consistency. But beyond these technical and narrative failures, one moment in particular stood out as both outrageous and unforgivably dumb: the use of the word junior to address a girl child. In one scene, Jai, refusing to accompany Adaora for an abortion, tells his wife that her sister will take care of Junior, referring to their daughter. This is not just sloppy writing, it's ignorant. Traditionally, Junior is a title reserved for sons named exactly after their fathers. For instance, John Smith Sr. and John Smith Jr. It is not, has never been, and will never be applied to daughters. If a girl happens to be named after her mother, she is often referred to as the second, never junior. Even the most basic cultural awareness or a simple Google search would have spared Tunde Babalola this embarrassing blunder. It's baffling that a Nollywood writer of his experience could make such a rookie mistake. This isn't just a slip, it's a display of carelessness, laziness, and lack of research. To reduce something so culturally and linguistically specific into such a glaring error exposes the very problem with Nollywood writing today, a dangerous habit of winging it without knowledge. The result? A scene that instantly breaks immersion and insults the intelligence of the audience. Honestly, even a nursery school child would know better. Another mindless atrocity in the writing of Devil is a Liar comes in the ridiculous twist where Adaora supposedly discovers her womb was removed during what was meant to be an abortion. An abortion she agreed to only because Jaye did not want a second child. I have watched countless Nollywood films, but I have never witnessed such deranged, nonsensical storytelling in my life. Now, that glaring and unforgivable blunders in Devil is a Liar lies in its depiction of Adaora's so-called abortion procedure. The film suggests that Adaora unknowingly had her womb removed, a hysterectomy, when she believed she was only undergoing an abortion during her first trimester. This is not only sloppy writing, it's a gross misrepresentation of medical reality. Here's the hard truth. A hysterectomy and an abortion are two completely different medical procedures, and the aftermath is worlds apart. An abortion in the first trimester, whether through medication or suction, is relatively straightforward and leaves the uterus intact. Recovery is usually quick, with mild pain, cramping, or bleeding that subsides within days or weeks. A hysterectomy, on the other hand, is a major surgery. It requires anesthesia, involves cutting into the abdomen or vagina, and leaves visible scars depending on the method used. The recovery process takes weeks, sometimes months, and the pain is far more severe and long-lasting than that of an abortion. Beyond the physical pain, there are hormonal and reproductive consequences that a woman would notice immediately, such as permanent loss of menstruation and infertility. For the film to suggest that Adaora went through a hysterectomy without realizing it is not just medically impossible, it's insulting to the audience's intelligence. Any woman who has had her womb removed will know almost immediately from the sheer intensity of the pain, the visible surgical scars, and the drastic changes in her body afterward. This is something that can be hidden from a patient, let alone mistaken for a simple abortion. By ignoring these clear distinctions, the movie undercuts its own credibility and insults viewers with a lazy, half-baked plot device that collapses under the weight of basic medical facts. Devil is a Liar calls itself a psychological drama, but in moments like this, it's nothing more than a careless lie. Worse still, the justification for this insanity that Jai and the doctor conspired to remove her womb so she would never have children again is laughably hollow. There is no meaningful motivation, no sinister depth, no psychological payoff, just a lazy, empty plot device that collapses under the weight of its own stupidity. This isn't just bad writing, it is reckless, insulting, and a slap in the face to viewers who expect even a shred of logic in storytelling. Let's talk about the performances to see if any of the actors managed to salvage this train wreck of a movie. Nse Ikpe-Etim takes on the role of Adaora Phillips, the lead character. There's no denying she is one of Nollywood's finest talents, an actress with real range, nuance, and the ability to command the screen. She is among the rare few in the industry who can genuinely act. But in this film, her brilliance is shackled by a disastrously weak script and poor direction, and it shows. In certain moments, Nse breathes life into Adaora, layering her with vulnerability and flashes of strength. You can see her trying, fighting against the weight of the bad writing. However, those moments are fleeting. Too often, her performance slips into lifelessness and disbelief, particularly in the prison sequences, where her expressions feel flat and disengaged. The fight scenes are another glaring failure, clunky, empty of energy, and completely devoid of the simmering tension they were supposed to carry. Instead of drawing the audience in, these scenes dissolve into bland, forgettable exchanges. What's most painful to watch is how the film continuously undercuts her ability to shine. Critical emotional beats are ruined by dialogue so poorly written. They sound like recycled cliches rather than genuine revelations of character. And while the script is the primary culprit, Nse herself doesn't push hard enough to elevate the material. It feels as though she surrendered to the mediocrity surrounding her, choosing not to stretch her craft to rescue a sinking story. The result? A performance that flickers with brilliance in brief sparks but ultimately drowns in the swamp of bad writing, weak direction, and her own unwillingness to fight for the character. Jane's Gardiner as Jaye was, without exaggeration, the absolute worst part of this film, and easily one of the weakest supporting performances I've seen in Nollywood in a long time. His acting was so painfully self-conscious and hollow that it almost felt like he was aware of the camera every second, delivering lines without conviction, depth, or emotional truth. His on-screen presence was feeble, unable to command attention even when the story placed him at the center of Adaora's world. The supposed romantic spark between him and Nse Ikpe-Etim was completely absent. Their interactions looked like awkward rehearsals rather than genuine intimacy. What should have simmered with chemistry instead came across as stiff, mechanical gestures of affection that Gardiner seemed to be forcing himself to deliver. To make matters worse, his constant jarring accent switches were a huge distraction, pulling the audience out of the story every time he opened his mouth. It was as though he couldn't decide which identity to settle into, and the result was a confused, inconsistent performance that reeked of inexperience. Simply put, Gardiner looked and sounded nothing like a trained actor. His performance lacked craft, discipline, and authenticity, reducing Jaye, a character meant to be magnetic and manipulative, into a laughably bland caricature. In a film already crippled by bad writing, his presence dragged it down even further into the abyss of mediocrity. The rest of the cast were quite literally nothing to write home about. Their performances were hollow, robotic recitations of lines rather than genuine acting. It was all surface-level English speaking with zero emotional weight, no depth, and no sense of authenticity. None of them brought any spark, texture, or cultural grounding to their roles. They simply existed on screen, filling space without leaving an impression. The result is a film in which the supporting actors did absolutely nothing to elevate the story. Instead of breathing life into weak material, they leaned into the lifelessness, letting every scene fall flat. Not a single performance carried the emotional gravity required to salvage the script, leaving the entire movie adrift and unsalvageable. In short, the cast became background noise in their own film, uninspired, ineffective, and incapable of rescuing a story that was already dead on arrival. In summary, Devil is a Liar had all the potential to be a bold, searing statement about love, trauma, and survival under the crushing weight of societal expectations. It could have been a powerful psychological drama that forced audiences to confront uncomfortable truths. Instead, what we got was a cinematic scam, a film that pretends to be profound but collapses into shallow melodrama, masquerading as tragedy. The actors, despite their individual talents, could do nothing to rescue a script that was already dead on arrival. Their performances were smothered by lifeless dialogue, recycled tropes, and direction so uninspired it stripped the film of any emotional weight. The writer, Tunde Babalola, delivered a script that reeked of carelessness and lack of research, while director Moses Inwang failed to shape it into anything remotely cohesive or meaningful. The end result is a movie that is not about love, not about trauma, and certainly not about the saying, "The devil is a liar." Instead, it becomes a lie told to itself and to its audience. A hollow, poorly executed film that exposes the very weaknesses Nollywood needs to rise above. And now for my rating. Devil is a Liar scores a humiliating 0 out of 10. I'm definitely trashing this. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon for notifications. Also, be sure to follow me on TikTok, WhatsApp channel, and Instagram at Domino Cinephile for more movie and TV series reviews. Domino Cinephile, signing out.